Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about a major event in Dungeons and Dragons history, which is the recall of the Book of Many Things. So let's talk about it. Okay, so first of all, um, I got this news was reported from Mastering Dungeons with Teos Abadia and Sean Merwin. They have an incredible 1 week every week podcast. I cannot suggest it highly enough. They're one of the best news sources for tabletop role playing games, and just two amazing human beings, like just really really nice guys. And they both were authors on a D&D canon hardback, which is Acquisitions Incorporated. And I think that's how they kind of started their relationship, right? But let's talk about what happened with the Book of Many Things. So right now, the Book of Many Things is being recalled, and the reason it's being recalled is I think they printed it and they sent out a bunch of copies to pre copies to guys like Game Masters, Game Masters, the worst named YouTube channel ever. Game Masters, like, this is so basic, right? But like, they sent it to this one guy who named his channel Game Masters, and he's kind of like an old he's an old grognard who complains about D&D, but he's tried to suppress his his old grognard gag reflex on D&D 5e and cover it because he gets tons of views, right? Like, he's like, hey, let me talk about this dusty old tome. Oh, I got 4 views. And then he's like, oh, let me talk about the latest D&D canon hardback. Wow, 4,000 views. Really, so like, he's a smart guy, smart enough to realize that he needs to stuff that old grognard gag reflex for D&D 5e down if he's going to have a channel, right? Like, or if a channel that has more than 150 subs, right? Like, so very interesting. But he did a great video. And he showed where, and I got into a dust up with him below, and I was wrong and he was right. He called this out early, and he was like, hey, these cards aren't the same size, right? And so the reason this is getting recalled is not the book. They know how to make a D&D canon hardback, right? This product was supposed to release with the most extensive card deck that has ever come with a Dungeons and Dragons product. So it was going to be the deck of many things, and it was going to be super large, super beautiful, super foil, super gold edged super decks, right? Just like and decks that don't even fit in the Magic sleeves, like oversized cards with incredible art, incredible production value, and they were printed at the wrong size. Okay, so the whole product needs to be. So I'm thinking, I could be wrong, but I think like 100,000 decks, like 100,000 products are being recalled. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to recall them, they're going to pull the decks off of them, reprint the decks, and put them back in, right? And this is going to cost hundreds of thousands, if not low millions of dollars, right? Now, what do we learn from this, right? So first of all, the knee-jerk reaction is, so I saw this guy. It was really fascinating. He put a tweet up and he's like, hey, everybody, I know we're supposed to only complain about Hasbro D&D, but I was actually reading one of the books that I bought from them, and it did this amazing thing, and I just wanted to share with you just this one delightful thing that I found in a Hasbro D&D product. And I know this is against the rules here on Twitter, but I just really wanted to share it with you. And of course, Twitter's like, what? You're only supposed to complain about Dungeons and Dragons on Twitter. It's so funny. And the reality is, so a lot of people are going to be like, Hasbro D&D sucks. Like they'd say after every, and at this point, it's said on every, every single product. Everybody's like, oh, look how bad the Hasbro D&D did, right? And they're angry and they're confused. They're angry, right? But they're also incredibly confused. And the reason why is their own math and their own patterns don't match, right? They're like, oh, Hasbro D&D is a bunch of idiots that can't do a product, right? Why then, if they can't do a product and they're a bunch of idiots, why do they outsell every single OSR product and every single indie product year after year after year after year after year? And the best products in OSR and the best products in indie don't get the same coverage as when people are literally talking about D&D 5e errata? Yeah, exactly, right? So the reality is this was a huge mistake on the part of Hasbro D&D. Now, the reality is, I don't think this really reached customers at all. Their process of release actually protected customers from buying this, right? Now, yeah. So, right? So what do we really learn? Well, the biggest thing is, I think, tell me if, so Darrington Press made books, right? Mike Flourish covered it. Like, some of them were significantly bowed, like a bow and arrow, right? Because they just didn't know how to make an actual D&D canon hardback book, because they haven't done it 50 times in the last 10 years alone, right? Like, like there's quality in Hasbro D&D because they create at scale, right? And they're under constant pressure because they constantly deliver. Whereas Darrington Press is like, oh my gosh, we need to publish a book now. We've only done it 3 times. Or like Palladium Book. Oh my gosh, we're publishing a book. We've only been doing this for 3 decades. We better Kickstarter it. We can't take that risk on our own. Like how many companies in tabletop role-playing games just operate with such GarageBand energy that you literally can't tell the difference between them and some sad sack who's piling books in his garage, right? It's ridiculous. It's utterly absurd, right? And MCDM a couple years ago literally had a book that they released, and they sent stickers to people like, oh, the material in the book is so bad, you got to sticker up the book, right? And the point is, right, that this is bad, right? But because Hasbro is a real company, not some, OSR indie company on the verge of collapse, because virtually every single one of them is on the verge of collapse, cannot afford brick and mortar real workspaces, right? And because the OSR and the indie are barely qualify as a real industry, right? And I don't really think they do, right? Hasbro can actually do this. They can actually recall the book, and they can absorb hundreds of thousands, if not low millions, in loss, right? And it's just a bump in the road for them. Or any OSR, any indie company, I think, except maybe Modifius, right? Maybe that's it. I don't think anybody else. Nobody else is really making money in the OSR or the indie space. And so basically, you reach this point, right, where you are, where they made this mistake, and they actually have the money to fix it. The money to fix it, right? Whereas any other OSR or indie company, this literally could have tanked them, and put them out of business, right? And so the reality is, I'm very proud of them for recognizing the mistake before it hit any real users, and taking action so that it really didn't hit any significant number of D&D purchasers, dungeon masters, and dungeon performers who would buy this, and for having a process that that showed it right away, and finally for actually being able to absorb this work and this significant issue and do it in a way that is highly professional and protected dungeon masters from the mistake. So it's a huge mistake, granted, but they're handling it professionally, right? And they're keeping the risk off of dungeon masters and dungeon performers, which I don't think MCDM really has done, right? And in my humble opinion, and what they're even doing is such a huge. This stuff is not even attempted in the OSR or in the indie. Maybe an exception would be Morkborg. Morkborg was an exceptional risk, right? And it paid off, and it was executed extremely well, right? But I'm very proud of Hasbro D&D for making a mistake and handling it in a professional manner. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.